Even now, in 2020, there are people who believe that artificial intelligence hasn't already had a negative impact upon humankind. And this is not to say that artificial intelligence won't have possibly great impacts, positive impacts on humankind, but there are some things that we have to consider, some facets of artificial intelligence that we need to consider as we move forward, because it is coming. Just like in January, we were going to have a problem with a little thing called the coronavirus. Well, we're going to have a problem with artificial intelligence. Hey everybody, I'm Brian Duff with the Duffel Lab, and I want to welcome you to the second episode in this mini-series on artificial intelligence. And in this episode, I want to look back about 25 years to 1997 when Garry Kasparov lost. He's a grandmaster, a grand champion at chess, and he lost. It was earth-shattering back then, right? Because we'd had computerized chess for a while, and you would get these computerized chess boards, and they were kind of clunky and whatever, but it was really kind of a thing, and you could actually beat them. Can't beat them anymore. I don't think I've ever been able to beat him. But we're going to go back and look at Garry Kasparov and look how in 1997, and if not before, artificial intelligence was putting people out of work. And to begin with, let's watch about a minute of the YouTube video that this article is based upon.
This was suspense beyond anything the world of chess had ever known. Garry Kasparov, 34 years old, a cheerful and confident player throughout a dominating career, hovered over his pieces in the deciding game of a match with an implacable challenger. Deep Blue, a computer. Kasparov won the first game in a breeze, but the next day he got the shock of his life. To Kasparov, Deep Blue played the second game much more strongly, differently. Unlike a computer, he said. Kasparov conceded, and the loss wore on his mind for the rest of the match. In each of the next three games, the world's preeminent chess players, man and machine, battled each other to a draw. Kasparov's early scorn for Deep Blue's abilities had proven a great mistake. In the final game, the computer led with the white pieces, and soon Kasparov's fans had to admit that the once unthinkable might actually be happening. How had it come to this?
How had it come to this? Well, because as I talked about in my first video on this series on artificial intelligence, we can't help but flip the switch as human beings. We got to push the envelope. We have the Super Collider. When they first turned it on, no one was quite sure what would happen with that. And we're doing all kinds of stuff, right? We have DNA, CRISPRs. We have all this stuff out there, all this technology that we're poking and prodding, maybe places some believe that we shouldn't, right? Well, this is important to look at because as we move forward in 2020 and beyond, we know we're having a lot of economic challenges coming up, right? I mean, a lot just here in 2020. But when we start having jobs, and what Garry Kasparov, he's the first person to be put out of work, really. I mean, there's people probably before him even, but the big first notable person that, hey, his job went away. They didn't need chess champions anymore because anytime you have a chess champion, it's like you're the human chess champion, but you can't beat the computer. You can't beat the AI. I mean, we're talking that was 1997. We're almost 25 years past that since then. So let's go over here to this article from The Verge where they really kind of get into all this. And it's chess champion Garry Kasparov, who was replaced by AI, says most U.S. jobs are next, which is the point of this article. Because as we begin losing jobs to automation and AI, we're going to have to figure out, does that open up new possibilities? Or for example, let's say, hey, right now we have humans that program computers, but we may not be that far off from computers programming computers. And a lot of that happens through AI. In the previous video, in video 1, we talk about that, how there's all these different things that people can do now with the AI that's designed to read and data mine text. So part of the thing with that is, since computer programming is text, well, AI can program. Well, eventually, if AI gets good enough, it'll program more effectively than we can. Now, where does that leave us? So let's get into this article. Humans still have the monopoly on evil. Garry Kasparov dominated chess until he was beaten by an IBM supercomputer called Deep Blue in 1997. The event made man loses to computer headlines the world over. Kasparov recently returned to the ballroom of the New York hotel where he was defeated for a debate with AI experts. Wired's Will Knight was there for a revealing interview with perhaps the greatest human chess player the world has ever known. He was the shiznits when it came to chess back in the day. Kasparov says, I was the first knowledge worker whose job was threatened by a machine. Says Kasparov, something he foresees coming for us all. Every technology destroys jobs before creating jobs. When you look at the statistics, only 4% of the jobs in the U.S. require human creativity. That means 96% of the jobs, I call them zombie jobs, they're dead. They just don't know it. For several decades, we have been training people to act like computers, and now we are complaining that these jobs are in danger. Of course they are. Experts say only about 14% of U.S. jobs are at risk of replacement by AI and robots. Nevertheless, Kasparov has some advice for us zombies looking to reskill. Now, let me say something. Like, sure, maybe 14% are at risk of losing their jobs to AIs, right? Well, what happens to those secondary and tertiary industries that, let's say, for example, when you have self-driving trucks, semis are able to drive themselves, and there's no problem. Like, literally, the truck gets loaded by AI forklifts, right? Gets all the goods that are going to market or going to Amazon somewhere, which may be the only place left standing here soon. And off the truck goes. Well, with AI driving it, you don't need a driver. With electric vehicles, and I imagine when you have a semi truck, you'll be able to have some really intense batteries in that are attached to the trailers rather than the truck. So the semi cab will be able to run just fine on and on and on because it's electric, being powered by batteries that are back in the trailer that is just churning out a ton of deliveries. Well, if you have batteries in the trailer, that means you don't need gas stations as much anymore. As electric cars come online, what does that do, again, to the service stations, to the truck stops, to the mechanics who fix the trucks? I mean, they're going to become modular, pretty much. Oh, the engine's out, plug a new motor in, right? Because everything's going all electric. Maybe not now in the next 5 years, and who knows? Maybe we're, going to get stagnant here for a while with the economy and stuff, and it slows it down. I don't know. Elon Musk is pushing. But we have to think about these secondary and tertiary. If you are a young mechanic now, hoping to work the next 30 years as a mechanic or 40 years as a mechanic, well, that might be one way to look at it. The other way might be looking at it like, maybe a good time to consider what happens if I do lose my job to automation, to AI. What other options, if I see this coming, what other options can I use my current skills to help propel me into that new market with? Like, what can I do to get myself ready, relying on some of what I already have? It's stuff to think about, right? Again, I'm about preparedness. I'm about looking objectively and subjectively at the future and going, hey, what is the best possible course of action for me and my family to make sure that I am as ready as possible to deal with what's coming on? So Kasparov goes on, there are different machines, and it's the role of a human to understand exactly what this machine will need to do its best. I describe the human role as being shepherds. Kasparov, for example, helps Alphabet's DeepMind division, and Alphabet is Google, right? It's one of the Google is one of the companies under Alphabet. He helps Alphabet's DeepMind division understand potential weaknesses with AlphaZero's chess play. The interview also yielded this gem of a quote from Kasparov. People say, oh, we need to make ethical AI. What nonsense. Humans still have the monopoly on evil. The problem is not AI. The problem is humans using new technologies to harm other humans. Right? Well, I mean, that is definitely there. And if we make it past that, doesn't warfare already, look at what we do with warfare? We hire contractors to go to war on our behalf to help lessen the amount of soldiers, lessen the amount of military that have to go. So it becomes more, it becomes more doable, more acceptable on some levels, right? So what do we do now? We use contractors. Well, pretty soon, and you'll see in some of the next videos, we have machines of war that we're turning over to AI, or will be soon. We're in the process of developing it. So what happens when we have fleets of aircraft that, we can go fight somebody and we don't lose anybody? Part of the problem with war, I mean, the main problem with war, obviously, is people dying and destruction and all that. And when you lose that bloodletting that happens, when you stop seeing the bodies come home, when we're just fighting robots, well, it might get a little bit easier to go to war with people. And like we know from the atomic arms race, once we detonated the first bomb, it wasn't that long till a bunch of people had the bomb. So even though ourselves, the Chinese, whoever may hit like some zenith with AI early on before everybody else, they're not going to stay there that long. Yeah, they might have an advantage for a little bit, but not the way the world works. Not today. So what does that say? Now everybody has these armies of drones and we're all staring at each other, nuclear-tipped drones? I don't know. But this is things we need to consider. It's a fascinating read and one that should be done in its entirety, if only to find out why Kasparov thinks AI is making chess more interesting, even though humanity doesn't stand a chance of beating it. Again, we're creating AI that right now we can say, humans are still smarter than it. Right now. Again, we need to have these conversations. We need to think about, we need all of us that see these videos to start thinking about it, because that's what's coming. We're losing jobs to automation. And we're losing jobs to a lot of shit right now, viruses and automation, but it's things that we need to get our head around. So with that, everybody, let's go ahead and get out of this video and get into the next video, at video 3 on my mini series about AI. And hey, if you could, please, the biggest way you can help me is just to spread the word. If you like this video, if you found this video helpful, interesting, whatever, if you think it's helpful for somebody else, please just share it with them. You can do the like, the comment, and all that, ring the bell, all that kind of stuff. But just please share this video if you would. I would really appreciate it. And so with that, as always, stay safe, secure, prepared, and healthy. And never forget, you are just one prep away from being better prepared. Bye for now.